The view from the air traffic control tower was beautiful that day. It was a clear, sunny evening, and visibility was perfect. The weather was ideal for flying. In the terminal, the passengers for Flight 215 began boarding for a plane ride that would change their lives forever. For many, this would be their last ride. Now, there were all sorts of passengers filing slowly past the ticket checkpoint. There were young and old passengers, a school group holding their school bags. There was a minister, a sport team were in the line, a few families with children, businessmen and people from all walks of life. They were all lined up, making their way onto the plane. It was a full flight with a head count of 185 passengers. There was not a spare seat to be found. In the cockpit, the captain and his co-pilot were busy conducting routine pre-flight checks. The dials, readings, meters, and monitors were all carefully reviewed and noted. The wing flaps were tested and the fuel gauge was checked. Everything was in perfect working order. Once the passengers were seated, the plane took off shortly after. Once the plane had reached cruising altitude, it leveled off and flew smoothly. Everything appeared normal. Everything appeared to be routine. No one suspected that in a few moments, this plane ride was about to impact their lives in the most dramatic way. The moon and the stars filled the night sky, and the light of towns and cities could be seen below, stretching to the horizon. Inside the plane, the passengers relaxed. Passengers were chattering, some rested, some watched films. And that's when unusual things started to happen. Down on the ground, the city lights began to flicker off and on. Then they went completely dark. One passenger sitting by the window noticed this and thought it to be a bit strange. It must be a power cut or something, they thought. An entire city plunged into darkness. But then a second city in the distance went dark, and then another, and another, until all the lights across the earth went dark. Suddenly the plane shuddered with strong turbulence, and the lights inside the plane also flickered off, then on, then off again. At this point, there was complete silence on board. All you could hear were the quiet whispers of a man praying. Now among the passengers there was a man on one of the window seats tightly holding a Bible. He seemed unfazed with the turbulence, unbothered with the lights going on and off again. He was fixated with something outside of the plane. As he gazed out the window, he saw what looked like a shooting star descending slowly from the heavens, and then it stopped in midair. And as the plane continued to experience strong turbulence, the shooting star, which appeared to stop midair, it vanished. And at that moment, the lights on the plane stopped flickering. And when they did, the man who was sitting by the window, tightly holding his Bible, was gone. Other passengers began to get upset when they saw more empty seats. More and more people cried out that passengers had gone missing. Others became hysterical when they realized that there was a family member who was missing. "They were just here, and now they're gone," a woman yelled to a flight attendant. Many of the passengers that filled the plane seconds before had now vanished. Multiple seats were empty. Parents were hysterical. Friends and family members were frantically searching for their beloved. Panic spread when the crew discovered that not 1, 2, or 5 people had disappeared, but over 40, and still counting. The number of missing passengers rose to over 50, and they were still counting. The captain broke out in a cold sweat, and he was utterly speechless when the final count came in. 61 passengers had simply vanished, gone, without a trace. The pilot immediately radioed for help and was instructed to land at the nearest airport. Within a few minutes, the plane was safely on the ground. Police and other authorities rounded up all of the passengers and started asking questions. No one could explain the phenomenon. "Where is the man who was sitting by the window with his Bible?" one passenger asked. "What's happened to most of the choir members?" asked another. And in the middle of this highly emotional discussion, one woman, with a stone-cold face, said, "It's the rapture. We've all been left behind." She immediately had everyone's attention, and she continued saying, in 1 Thessalonians chapter 4, verse 17, the Bible speaks of people being caught up in the air to meet with Jesus. As the remaining passengers were processing what they had just been told, one detective began to ask, "Are your missing loved ones or friends Christians?" Everyone said, "Yes." The detective went on to say, "I hate to break this to you, but we've received news from all around the world that millions of people have vanished. Whatever this is, it's happening everywhere, and it seems to only be happening to Christians." Some passengers fell on their knees because it finally began to sink in. At one point or another, they had been told to pray, to live right before God, because this day would come. And now that day was here, and they were left behind. The world saw it as a strange phenomenon. Scientists came up with theories of a Big Bang-like event, a great world reset. Conspiracy theorists said this was an invasion-like event that had an extraterrestrial involvement. But those who claimed to be Christians but were left behind knew that 1 Thessalonians chapter 4, verse 17 said, "Then we who are alive, who are left, will be caught up together with them in the clouds to meet the Lord in the air, and so we will always be with the Lord." Some had been warned but didn't listen. Some listened but thought they had plenty of time. Others thought they would make the rapture, but they weren't living right. Only those who truly followed Jesus Christ were raptured away.